At this point, I've made a few wishlist videos for different parks across the country, including SeaWorld San Diego, Dollywood, Knott's Berry Farm, and Animal Kingdom. But today I wanted to look at individual roller coaster models and see what roller coaster types by each manufacturer have the most potential. So today we're going to rank the top 10 roller coaster models with the brightest future. Now when I say brightest future, I don't necessarily mean that the number of roller coasters from each ride model will be higher than others. Like, we're not counting individual installations, we're counting overall quality. So let's say if I choose an Aero Looper to have the best future out of any other ride model on the planet, that doesn't mean that I think there are going to be 10 Aero Loopers and only 3 Schwarzkopf Loopers, you know? It just means that the Aero Loopers that will be added will be better than the Schwarzkopf Loopers that will be added. This video is focusing on quality, not necessarily quantity, because if we just try to guess which ride models will be the most successful from an installation point of view, from a business perspective, then I would probably have to go with a gimmicky roller coaster, you know, not necessarily a ride model that's really exciting. And number 10 is actually a great example of this because this ride model has been around for quite a while. It's Intamin Hypercoasters. So we're in a unique position in the United States where we have a lot of older gen Intamin Hypercoasters. Most of the new Intamins that we have gotten in this country are launch coasters, so I don't think we've gotten an Intamin Hypercoaster since Sky Rush in 2012, so it's been over a decade. And I feel like modern Intamin is just so exciting. It's super interesting to see the hypercoasters that they've added since Sky Rush, and we're going to include the mega coasters in this conversation because Conda looks like an absolutely amazing ride. That layout looks super exciting. And obviously Hyperion at Energylandia just looks absolutely incredible. So I really hope the United States gets a modern Intamin Hypercoaster. And even if we don't, I feel like there should be at least 1 or 2 more installations of this ride model that will be very high quality. I've heard nothing but good things about Conda, so it's very promising going forward. I would love to see what other layouts Intamin could come up with for a hypercoaster because Conda was very creative. Hyperion at Energylandia seems to be more of a basic out and back layout with a twister finale, so it's not that creative from a layout perspective, but it's just impressive from the scale of that attraction. So I'm hoping for a little bit of both. I hope we get to see a large scale Intamin coaster with a lift hill in the United States at some point, and I hope that we get a creative layout somewhere, hopefully at the 200-foot mark, because I love my hypercoasters. Moving on to number 9, I feel like B&M Hypers still have a future. We're gonna throw in Giga Coasters too because it's technically the same ride model, even though you can build a hypercoaster with it or you can build a Giga Coaster. It's the same type of ride. I feel like there could be at least 1 or 2 more of these types of coasters that go in literally anywhere, and I love B&M Hypers. I'm totally a B&M Hyper fanboy, so I love this ride model. Like, I feel like any installation is just super high quality, so I would be very surprised if we've seen the last of B&M Hypercoasters. I gotta guess that a Giga built by B&M should probably go somewhere. Like, we still don't have a Giga Coaster in Europe, and I feel like B&M would be a very strong contender to build a Giga in Europe. I have no idea where that would be. And we still got a few parks in the United States that could build a Giga Coaster. If that will be built by B&M, that kind of remains to be seen, so who knows. If you watch my Knott's Berry Farm wishlist video, you know that I'm hoping that we actually get a B&M Giga at some point, but I can only dream, I guess. And a B&M Giga is a B&M Giga. For a long time, Fury 325 was considered the best roller coaster in the world. It seems to be slipping in a majority of people's rankings, which is just bizarre. That's just kind of how roller coaster rankings work, though. A lot of coaster enthusiasts kind of fall into the trap of the shiny new toy, you know? So right now it feels like Iron Gwazi is on top, and I would be very surprised if that's still the popular opinion in 5 years, whenever the next big top tier roller coaster opens, you know? You can't go wrong with a B&M Hyper or a B&M Giga. That's the main point. Moving up to number 8. Speaking of Iron Gwazi, we're going to talk about RMC Hyper Hybrids. Right now there's only 3 in the world. We got Iron Gwazi, we got Steel Vengeance, and we got Zadra. I've only ever been on Steel Vengeance. I've seen Iron Gwazi with my own eyes. I saw it running, and then Florida weather happened, so I did not get to experience it. But I was just talking about how it's been getting praise as one of the best roller coasters on the planet. I feel like there are multiple parks that could build an RMC Hyper Hybrid, and obviously you don't need that many installations because the quality will definitely be there, especially with RMC's newer layouts like Air Force 1 and Wildcat's Revenge. They just look super impressive. So I would love to see an Air Force style layout on an RMC Hyper Hybrid. Some parks that could build an RMC Hyper Hybrid include Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Carowinds, and maybe even a park in California. Fun Spot Atlanta kind of came out of nowhere and they built an 150-foot tall RMC. And from what I understand, RMCs aren't awfully expensive compared to these other manufacturers, so I wouldn't be surprised if we just see a Hyper Hybrid spring up out of nowhere. It seems like a very real possibility, given the praise of these ride models have been getting and the lower cost to actually build the thing, you know? Steel Vengeance is one of my favorite roller coasters of all time. If we just get more of these ride models on that scale, it'll just be absolutely incredible. The only issue might be the fact that RMC has built a lot of roller coasters already. And obviously, if you're a park with a mid-size RMC, you don't really have an incentive to build a Hyper Hybrid. We have reached the point in our society where we have 2 parks that have 2 RMCs, but I'm not sure if we'll ever reach the point where a park builds 2 iBox coasters. I mean, maybe, probably not. Moving on to number 7 is Chance Hyper GTX coasters. I love Lightning Run. It's such a great ride. It's got incredible airtime. I love the restraints on that thing. They actually allow you to feel the airtime and you don't have to hold it up, unlike some RMCs. So it's just absolutely an incredible roller coaster. And I really hope that we see more. Obviously, we have one coming to Arizona. So I hope that that coaster is really well received. And I hope it actually sparks a wave of additions for the Chance Hyper GTX model. If you watch my Knott's Berry Farm wishlist video, you know that this is another coaster that I hope to see at that park because it would just be an absolutely incredible airtime machine. We'll see how the inversions play out. I'm a little concerned that it'll just be a generic inverting model. We have plenty of those in the amusement park industry. I would prefer if the Chance Hyper GTXs really narrow in on those airtime moments, whether they're twisted airtime or just traditional bunny hills, because that is where Lightning Run really thrive. Moving on up to number 6, we got RMC Raptors. I absolutely love Railblazer, and I'm a really big fan of Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Magic Mountain. These 2 layouts are amazing. They're so much fun. The airtime moments are great. The inversions are honestly some of my favorite inversions I've ever ridden. So I just really hope that we get to see other variations of an RMC Raptor. I would really love to see a Hyper Raptor, just to see what that would look like. I'm not sure if that could ever happen because the larger scale Six Flags parks are just building the Jersey Devil model. I'm sure Great America will probably get a clone of Jersey Devil at some point. But I could only imagine the elements that RMC would include in a Hyper Raptor and how fast-paced it would be. I would also love to compare it to Railblazer and Golden Lasso Coaster at Fiesta, Texas, because it seems like most people, including myself, prefer the smaller scale Raptors because of their fast-paced intensity and sharp airtime moments compared to the larger models. So I would love to see a Hyper Raptor to see how that compares to the smaller scale models in Railblazer and Golden Lasso Coaster. Would it be even more drawn out than Jersey Devil, and would people like it less, or would it be like intense? Would it be, I don't know. Out of all the iBox coasters, Iron Gwazi and Steel Vengeance are pretty well regarded as the best iBox coasters, so it would be interesting to see if RMC took their Raptor model to those heights. Would that Raptor coaster be as good as Steel Vengeance, Iron Gwazi? Or would it follow the trend of Jersey Devil, where the taller you make the Raptor, the less intense they are, and the less I don't want to say exciting, but, you know, less powerful, I guess. Would it be less powerful than Railblazer? Because Railblazer is just knucking futs, dude. It's wild. But this is just a super exciting roller coaster model, and I hope we haven't seen the last of it. Moving on up to number 5, this is Mach Hypers. We don't have a Mach Hyper in the United States. Obviously, the main example of this is DC Rivals down in Australia. That ride looks awesome. From what I've heard, it's awesome, so I hope that the United States actually commits to a Mach Hyper someday. I feel like it has a brighter future because than B&M Hypers, because to some extent it's still sort of a mystery box, and some park might actually invest in the Mach Hyper coaster to stand out from a lot of other parks that already have B&M hypercoasters. So I feel like we're going to get one in the United States at some point. It's just, I'm not sure where. There's definitely a few potential landing spots. My favorite idea is King's Dominion and Busch Gardens Tampa, because those parks exist near another park that has a B&M hyper, so they could fill out their hypercoaster by going with the mock hyper, and it would be totally different from the existing B&M hypers at their competing parks. So I feel like that would just be a really interesting dynamic if we had mock hypers competing with B&M hypers. As I said, I'm a B&M hyper fanboy, so I would love to compare without having to go all the way to Australia. So that's why this ride model is on our list. Plus, I gotta mention that mock rides, I would love to see this company build a Giga Coaster. I have no idea how likely that is, but if they took this model to the 300-foot height range, I feel like it could be a contender for one of the best rides in the world. I've heard nothing but good things about DC Rivals, so if you make that ride 100 feet taller, make it longer, faster, it could definitely compete for #1 overall for a lot of people. Moving on to number 4, this is a Vekoma tilt coaster. I feel like this model is actually coming to the US with Kotoland. We actually have one confirmed coming to the United States. It'll be interesting to see how this ride goes over. I feel like it might kind of step on the toes of B&M dive coasters, which are another popular ride model. But from what it looks like, these rides seem to be a much more complete package. They seem to be a much better ride experience than B&M dive coasters. So I hope that these take off and kind of fill the void that B&M dive coasters are kind of taking up right now. I think a lot of people would much rather see Cedar Fair start adding these to their parks instead of B&M dive coasters. But you know, Cedar Fair loves their dive coasters, so that's probably not going to change. But I feel like this ride model still has a lot of success. It's kind of got gimmick written all over it, so I feel like if Six Flags ever gets their stuff together, then this could totally be a ride model that they invest in, especially for their larger parks. We've seen Dollywood work with Vekoma, so maybe they go with one of these ride models in the future. And obviously, Dollywood is owned by Hershen, so this includes Kentucky Kingdom and Silver Dollar City, which are definitely contenders for a ride like this. It just seems to be the perfect balance of gimmick and actual, substance for a ride layout. So I feel like this might be like one of those ride models that just absolutely takes off in the next decade or so. We'll see, If the tilt mechanism is actually like really unreliable, then probably not. But I hope the one in Circuit Breaker, I hope that one is just a smash hit for Kotoland, so we can see more of these rides being built. Number 3 is a ride model that we've seen in the US multiple times. It's a Intamin multi-launch coaster. Velocicoaster and Pantheon are absolutely incredible. I love both of those rides. They're absolutely fantastic. They both seem to be really well received, so especially Velocicoaster. So I hope we see more of these in the future, whether that's in the United States or beyond. I feel like whenever one of these opens, it's always mentioned as one of the best roller coasters in the world. I have no reason to believe that these are just going to stop being added across the world. So I hope we see more of them, and I hope they continue to get better and better with each installation. And I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to see at least 1 or 2 more of these rides in the United States, because they're just incredibly popular. They could go pretty much anywhere and just be an absolute draw for anyone. At number 2, we kind of have a wild card of a roller coaster model. We got S&S Axis coasters. We obviously haven't seen one of these yet, but just the ride system looks really exciting. I really want one to open so that we can know what to expect. Is this ride model gonna provide rides that could be top tier, or is it just gonna be a mid-tier looping coaster model? Is it just gonna be a gimmick? But I feel like you could provide some weird weightless moments with this layout. You could be floaty with it. I don't know, it just seems really interesting. This could be the next generation of fourth dimension coasters. We're probably never going to see another ride like X2 ever again. So I feel like this is kind of the spiritual successor to those rides. If these rides could get anywhere close to X2 in terms of quality, then it'll be an absolute smash hit. So I would love to see what types of layouts S&S comes up with for this ride model. So it's just super exciting. It's a big mystery box right now, which is why it's so high on this list. I'm really surprised we haven't seen one added yet. I feel like if Six Flags was in a better financial state, then we probably would have seen multiple of these by now, but, you know, stuff happens. And then number 1 is Mack Extreme Spinners. I love Time Traveler, and we've obviously heard nothing but rave reviews from Ride to Happiness. So I really, really, really want to see more Mack Extreme Spinners. Any size, any scale, any park. I just want these to take off like wildfire. I want them everywhere, dude. I want to see how many different layouts Mack can come up with. And they're not even that large in terms of scale, but they're being compared to rides that are like 3 times bigger than them in terms of quality, you know? So it's just super, super exciting. I really want to see more of these. I really want to ride to Happiness one day. I feel like that would just be absolutely incredible. And I'm a big Time Traveler fanboy. I would love to get back to Silver Dollar City to get some more laps on that ride. It's just absolutely incredible. And of course, I want to see more of these added everywhere. Preferably one in Southern California, so I don't have to travel that far to ride one. Because man, these spinning coasters are just next level. It's just so exciting to see. I love the weird angles, the crazy airtime on a spinning coaster. It's non-stop amazingness, you know? It's just like everything that I love in roller coasters. And they're not terribly intense or terribly dizzying, so like most people can enjoy them, you know? It's just that perfect happy medium for a roller coaster to hit. So I just really hope that we see more of these. I feel pretty optimistic that we will. So yeah, that is my ranking of the top 10 roller coaster models with the brightest future / most potential. What do you think about this list? Did I miss out on any ride models that you think have a really bright future? Out of the 10 that I listed, which do you think will be the most successful? Have you been on any of these ride models? Do you hope to get on any of these ride models? Please let me know down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.